said that 160 million of the proceeds of that would also go to the T, because the T's funding was, the T was just operating, was just a black hole for cash. So they gave it more. And they thought, well, when we're reforming our transportation agencies, we can't just consolidate, we have to have some real savings. So we're going to look at the T. We know the T is bleeding cash. We're going to take all the T workers, and we're going to put them on the Group Insurance Commission for the health insurance, and that's going to save $30 million a year. And that looked good. That would. The numbers bore out that it would save $30 million a year, and that was a good thing for the T. But subsequently, there was an agreement through a union contract, through the collective bargaining process. There was a deal where part of the negotiation was that for all the benefits, health benefits that the workers lost in that process, in that, moving over to the state's plan, the T was going to have to fund that and put that into, like, this health trust. So those savings, that $30 million that was supposed to be saved, got diverted into this trust to make up for the shortfall of the benefits that they wouldn't be getting for going over to the group insurance contract. They say, well, we've already tried reform. Yeah, they tried reform, but it wasn't real reform. It was little R reform. You need big R reform. Big R reform. They didn't do that. So that didn't quite work. Then Governor Patrick knew there was a problem at the T. And he commissioned David D'Alessandro, former head of John Hancock Insurance, good guy, knows his stuff, to go in there and to find out what's really going on at the T. Because so they have another study to go into the T, and let's find out what's really going on, what can be done with those T finances. So D'Alessandro issued a report in 2009, very shortly after the transportation reform legislation was passed and implemented. And his findings, his and his team's findings, were that the T had a structural deficit of $500 million by 2014. And that was before any new negotiations with the union and any issues with the pension fund.
Is that $500 million annually?
No. The $500 million from at that time, 2010 to 2014.
Okay.
Okay. And he pegged the T's deferred maintenance, all the projects that they didn't do, that they need to do to keep the T's assets, its switching equipment, its signalization, its tracks, its cars. He pegged that cost to get everything into a state of good repair at about $3 billion. So there's a structural deficit and there's this capital deficit to try to get things going. So where are we now? 2014, last fiscal year. On top of that 20% of the sales tax that they were getting, plus the the penny on the nickel they were getting, plus the $160 million in additional funding they got after the transportation finance reform legislation, the state had to kick in another $115 billion to keep the T afloat. What's that? Billion. No, 115 million. 115 million. Sorry.
Million, billion. What's that? Point doesn't make.
Pretty soon you're talking real money.
So what that meant is that last year the state kicked in $1.1 billion to fund the T, over half of its operating costs. And that's before they assess localities, all the T service areas, they assess them. That comes to about 100 other cities and towns. Framingham included pays into it. Boston pays into it. That's another $157,000 in 2014. And then that's how much they're getting from us right now. Recently, Pioneer did a request way back in July to try to get the deferred maintenance backlog, listing of all the assets and how it came to us, how it tabulated to. We got a response saying that this is the most recent report. It was dated 2006. 2006. We asked for it in 2014. Not quite sure how Dave D'Alessandro pegged that number at $3 billion. We had this report from 2006. That was their most recent report. During all this chaos over the last few months, they issued another report to say that the deferred maintenance backlog is now up to $6.7 billion. 6.7 to get the T into a 6.7 billion, I'll be very clear, billion, to get the T into a state of good repair. That's a huge amount of money. Why they weren't tracking it, I don't know how you could fix it if you don't track it. This 2015 comes up with 6.7, the last report was 2006. If you don't track it, how can you fix it? All right.
What's the general manager's doing all these years?
Something, Right. And now back to what's currently going on. We all know what happens with the snow and the ice. I spent a lot of time talking to the conductors to find out what's going on. I said, why do we have to stop? He said, well, they didn't adequately clear the tracks. You know, they're supposed to keep the trains going. Perhaps snow plow trains going all the time during the snow. I looked at that contract with Keolis, commuter rail operator. It said if the forecast is for more than 4 inches of snow, and there's 2 inches of snow on the ground presently, they're supposed to work around the clock. That didn't happen. I don't know, was there a Super Bowl going on or something? I don't know, but that did not happen. And that's not the workers, that was management. Not the workers, it's management. Something did not go according to plan. Then we find out we have to borrow equipment from New York. It turns out that they did an analysis recently of what other de-icing. Well, what happened was, because they didn't clear the snow on the tracks, it would get caught up under the cars. They'd go over the switches, car would go over the switches, rumble, rumble, rumble over the switches, right? Snow would fall, it would freeze, then they couldn't move the switches, right? So then they had to have manual people come out and manually de-ice it on the switches. I mean, I was stuck on many a train trying to come in. So that, and we all have our stories about what happened to us that tried to use teeth this winter. It's unbelievable. And even before that, and the Globe, or was the Globe, came out and talked about all the missed buses. Have you guys tried to take the bus around town?
Channel 5 had investigative reports, and the absenteeism of the operators was just outrageous.
I work downtown on Devonshire Street. My father is getting old and he lives in Charlestown. Sometimes I like to go at lunch. Maybe I can take the 92 right down there and get to Charlestown and come back, just do a 10-minute check, be back, fine. Go out, wait up, no train, no bus. They just didn't come. Then I'd be out in Charlestown waiting. Bus doesn't come. What happened? Driver didn't show up. You know, this is going on. That's not the snow. That's a management issue that needs to be resolved. And right now, fare box revenue is the amount of fares that they actually collect that they put towards operations. Right now, the T is much lower than many of the other transit systems. We're less than 40%. So fares aren't covering it. So that's much lower than other organizations. So
now, Mary, can I just ask a quick question? Is that because of what we're charging, or how ridiculously expensive our operating expenses are?
We're probably pretty much in line with other agencies. But our costs are high. And I'll talk about commuter rail in a second. I'll talk about it now. Commuter rail, every other commuter rail system in the country is experiencing increasing ridership. Our commuter rail is down 13% since 2009. Now those trains are going to run, but all that fare revenue is passed, you know? What happened was they increased the fares too high. They said, oh, commuter rail was low relative to the rest of the country. But commuter rails, you just jack it up too high, too fast. People would say, no. I live out in the burbs. I have to get in my car anyway to get to the commuter rail lot. I'm just going to drive into the city, because if you look at the cost of getting in and out, and the cost, it's not quite cheaper, but when you add your time, yeah. I still take the commuter rail because I love to read, and sometimes nap on my way home, or on my way to work. Sometimes I like streetcars. They're also never sleep, but that's another story. So, what has Pioneer looked at? We believe that multiple administrations, multiple legislatures, and multiple T-boards really have failed the public.